So it was about 2 weeks ago that I made a video about how I was coping with the fact that my dog Foxy, who's also my soul dog, was nearing the end of her life. And I was also on the journey of like doing 30 videos in 30 days, and that went out the window. But today I want to share with you the rest of the story because she's no longer here. And even as a death doula, this part of the story sucks. So in this video, I'm going to share with you what happened, how I came to the decision, and what I needed to do in order to grieve her in the most loving way possible. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Foxy Dudes, Foxy Stinker Dudes. So Foxy was 6 when I adopted her, and I met her at an event where I was vending at a table. Like I was a vendor at this event. I was in insurance at the time, so that was like a whole different lifetime for me. But they said that we could pick whatever space we wanted to be in. And I immediately saw the adoptable dog table, and there was a space open. So I was like, that's the place that I'm going to sit at. So I set my table up and immediately was met with this little doppy dog who just looked up at me and was just the sweetest thing ever. And I go, who is this little sweetie? And the foster mom was like, this is Foxy. She's, one of our adoptable pets. She's an adult, a little elder. And I said, oh, I've been looking for a dog. And, I was kind of expecting a bigger dog, but she's okay. She looked like a beefed up hot dog. So I really enjoyed the fact. And she was just so sweet to me. So the backstory on her was that she was adopted out and then was with the family for 4 years and then was given back to the shelter. And so they were trying to get her back acclimated with people. She had been in, she had not been socialized. She was really like scared. She was just a scared, nervous, fearful dog, and I loved her. So every time that she would walk around the perimeter, I would just be watching her. I wasn't there to sell insurance. I was there to like just watch her. And she kept on sitting right in front of me with the toppy paws and just was so sweet. And I said, listen, if you don't find a suitable home for her, I would love to put an application in and adopt this little fur baby and just let her live out the rest of her life just in a lot of love. My kids were older, they were in elementary, middle school. And, I thought she'd be a really good addition to the family. So they ended up taking my info. I put an application in for her and I just, let it go. And I was like, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. If not, the right dog will come along. But I get this phone call like the very next day, and it's the foster mom. And she's like, hey, we're throwing out all the other applications. Foxy chose you, and let's do a home visit to see like how she's going to do with the kids and the home. And I lived up on the third floor at that time, so she had to walk up these stairs, and and my kids were like calmer back then, and because they were older, and not that they're like unruly now, but you know what I mean. Like they were calmer, they weren't like crazy, and it was a really nice experience. And Foxy just was at home. Like they all bonded, like everyone got along. And I remember the foster mom dropping her off, and I said, I promise I will take care of her. Like, I promise, because she had fostered her before. Like, that was her first foster dog. She adopted out, and then she came back and was with the same foster mom. So I was like, I promise you that I will take good care of her and that I will stay in contact with you through this whole thing. And she was like, cool, awesome. So every year around June, we would, her and her sister, because like her sister was in the foster program too. And the foster mom adopted her sister, and I had Foxy. So Roxy and Foxy sisters. And so every June I would send a picture of Foxy saying happy birthday to Roxy, and it was back and forth. So it was really cute. But from the very beginning, she was my anchor. She was my little shadow. She wouldn't leave my side. She would just be my constant companion. We went through so much together. Like she helped me through some really hard times. And, even though she was 6, she was still very spunky, very spry, very energetic, would do zoomies all around. And towards the end, she wasn't zooming around as much, but I'm getting ahead of myself. She would have been 14 this June. Yeah, she would have been 14 this June. So she was an older lady. But I promised her that I would never put her in a crate ever again. And the one time that I did, she sure told me that she was like, don't you ever do that to me ever again. I didn't know how much space she took up until she was gone. And like when you have an older dog and you have a senior dog, the immediate thoughts there are like you're thinking about the end. Like it is a thought that happens. What is life going to look like after she's gone? He's gone, my pet, my animal. What is that going to look like? When am I going to know it's time? Those are the things that we think about when dogs hit senior age or, your cat. Um, so it was front of mind, and I knew that she had been slowing down for the past, few years. Like she wasn't as spunky, she wasn't doing zoomies as much as she was in prior. And I just noticed that she was just slowing down. But it wasn't until the last few weeks that I noticed the real big slowdown. I'd made that video. She wasn't eating as much as she was. She's really food motivated. And so for her not to be eating as much was like a clear indicator to me that, hey, like everything is slowing down. And that was probably the most, if not the most, um, shocking thing to witness because she was so food motivated. I would take her for walks every morning, and I just noticed that she couldn't go as far as she wanted to. She would be lagging behind, so I would have to slow down for her to catch up. Whereas before, she'd be like pulling me essentially. Like I wasn't walking her, she was walking me. And, she really started slowing down and putzing around. So our walks got shorter and shorter, and then she would sleep for most of the day. The week prior, she stopped eating completely, and I really had to encourage her and like put her food, her kibble in like broth and really encourage her to take her meds. I'd put her meds in peanut butter and she would take treats, but the peanut butter was like that was like the chef's kiss. And she was not taking her meds. So I knew it was time because the day before, she hadn't eaten anything. She wasn't taking her medicine. She hadn't had anything in her stomach, but she was throwing up and it was undigested. And as a death doula, I know that at end of life, our systems are shutting down, they're slowing down. And the fact that it was not digested and it just was a clear indicator. So I was like, I knew it was time. In my heart, I knew it was time. So I called someone I recommend to a lot of my clients who have pets that are nearing the end of their life. And I asked them to help me help her walk her home. That night, I didn't know if she was going to make it that night, so I was preparing my kids. They're adults now, which is crazy to say, but I wanted them to have the opportunity to be there with her for her final day, and I wanted them to be prepared emotionally and in all the things. So I told them I don't know if she's going to make it through the rest of the night, and I brought her into my room, and I was like, I'm going to call this place first thing in the morning, because like by then they were closed, and I needed that time just to sit with her. So I called them first thing in the morning, and they said, we have a time available at noon today. So they were there by the afternoon. So that day was a very beautiful day. And she loved to be outside in the sun and get scritches in the sunshine on the grass. So that's what we did. She wasn't able to walk at that point, so I had to physically pick her up and put her out into the grass. And, I just kind of laid her out there and I sat there with her, and, I just gave her her space because she didn't seem like she wanted to be pet or touched too much. Um, she was going in and out of, it seemed like awareness. So I just knew that she kept looking up at me and then going back into her own little bubble and then looking up at me and looking up at my son. My daughter is away at college, so she wasn't able to be there and she didn't want to do the FaceTime. When it got closer to the time, I brought her in and put her next to the sliding glass door so she could feel the air and hear the birds and, be able to look outside. And, you know, um, it's always a hard, it's always a hard moment, when a stranger comes in and, your pet is like, my Foxy was always like barking and was like, who is this person? But I think the hardest moment in that particular experience was the vet came in and Foxy just didn't bark. She didn't try to get up. She didn't anything. It was like she knew what the vet was here for. And so the vet was wonderful. Um, Explained the whole process, was very, very calm, was peaceful. Um, when Foxy went under the anesthesia, she then put Foxy's paw in a mold. So that was really nice. I have that memory attached. And I think they do that for a reason that like the memory attached to this is that she's just asleep. And it was like the first time that I felt Foxy really get comfortable and calm. So this is a really cool memory. But I could tell that she was ready to go. She was just lying there. She surrendered so beautifully. And then they gave her the shot and she was gone. It was like a gentle breeze and she was gone. And in my head and in my heart, I could see her like detach from her body and just start running. Like she hadn't been able to run in forever. So I just saw her running and running and running and zoom in and zoom in. And so to me, I was like, oh, she's already happy. And then the nurse and then the vet said, she's gone. I'm sorry. So after that, they had a driver come in and put her in a sleeping blanket, and I got to say final goodbyes. And they took her to the place to hold her before they did the cremation. I did opt for a private cremation, and I did opt to attend. Now, because I opted to attend, they also allowed me to have a viewing of her before putting her into the retort. And I could be a part of the process as much as, or as little as I'd like. And I said to her, I promised her that I would be with her every single step of the way, you know. And so I made good with that promise. And I got to the place, and they had this beautiful room all to myself. It was very quiet, very peaceful, and there she was. And so I think the interesting thing, especially coming from a death doula too, I had this thought of like, what if she's not gone? Like, what if she's still here? And, what if I get there and she's just ready to come back home and excited? And like, I knew that she was gone, but my brain was like, the denial is just so big. So I thought that was interesting, but I really enjoyed having that time. I didn't enjoy it. It sucked, honestly, but I really appreciated having that time to pet her and to feel that she was cold, that she wasn't moving, that she was indeed gone. And it made me feel more at peace. So, you know, they let me have like 20, 30 minutes with her, and then, she was in the retort. I did opt to have her in her sweater, her little Foxy sweater that had a little fox on it. And I also opted to have like a little feather in there because I'd found that feather while I was taking a walk with her. So that was just my little gift to her. So they actually allowed me to be in the room to help push her in. Um, so I got to see her go in. I sat alongside her um, while she was going through the process. We did discover that she had a tumor the size of, it looked like a volleyball the way that he was sharing. He was like, yeah, sometimes that happens. So it makes a lot of sense. And now I want to go to the vet and be like, I knew there was something up with her. Like, you guys told me to stop feeding her as much and taking her for walks. And I was doing all that. And like, she was still gaining weight. And it makes sense because she had this big tumor. So anyway, I won't go into much detail about that. So then after she was done in the retort, I was there while they brushed her all out. And by that point, it wasn't so much that was her anymore. It was more of an educational piece, although I was there to be with her. Um, and what's left as far as remains wasn't exactly what I thought it would be, you know? Um, I was kind of expecting to see more of a dog shape, but really it's not. And I know a lot about cremation. Like I've done a lot of research. I've never sat in a live cremation before. So for me, this was a really educational, very connective piece because I was so attached to her. And to be able to go through this whole process and learn at the same time was just such a wonderful thing. So as I process through all the feelings and the experience, maybe I'll share more about the cremation process and what I learned through the process. But for right now, let's just keep it focused on what happened with Foxy. So I was able to go through the processing with her. And then after that, walking her down to get her urn. I got to pick her out, her little urn. And I even watched them wrap her up. It's you'll see it's nothing. Like I got to see them wrap her up. I even got to keep a tooth. We found a tooth and I was like, that's cool. Like let me maybe that's weird. I don't know, but and then that's some of her fur. So, I was able to be with her the whole time and she fits in there very perfectly. And I got a little key lock set. I don't know why I'd lock her in there, but I'm eventually going to put her remains in jewelry and spread some in the field where she liked to go run, and also give some to my kids and also to her foster mom. I'm just not ready to break her up yet. It's only been, it's not even been a week yet. So, what this experience also taught me was that this stuff is really hard to go through. As someone who loved this animal, loved this person, going through these last stages is very, very difficult. But here's what this process taught me. Now, even though I'm a death doula and understand the process of death and dying, and even the afterwards of what happens to us and the transitions that we take going forward in a funeral home or crematory, this part was hard. However, it is something that we can, as family members and loved ones, partake in. I highly encourage anyone to do it. It helps with the process of the grieving. I know for sure that if I didn't have that time, I would still be doubting. It would prolong my grief process. There are certain times and conditions where they are like probably not a good idea, but for as much as you can, to be with the person, to be with the animal as much as you can is probably the best thing that you can do, is the best thing that I could do. And it is a little bit more expensive. It's so expensive, but hashtag worth it. You only die once, so. And this also solidified the fact that rituals matter. Witnessing this all matters. Being present matters. All of it. I don't care about the price tag. The money will come and go. Her life, the amount that she meant to me, that stays on forever. And I feel like I did right by her. So that's the story of my Foxy girl and how her chapter ended. She was the sweetest hello and the hardest goodbye. And if you're grieving a pet, you also understand that as well. You're not alone. And it's okay to let their blanket and their bedding stay out. It's okay to not wipe off the windows if their nose love is still there. It's okay to keep the food in the dish for a little bit longer. It's okay to break down, and it's okay to smile. Grief lives in those little moments, those micro moments, and it's okay to let it hurt. Grief is love with nowhere to go. And I think the goal is to allow the grief to heal us in some sort of ways. Yeah, grief is grief is also a motherfucker. And grief is also dumb. I hate it. I hate it and I love it and I hate it all at the same time. But I also honor it. Now, if you're being called to this work and you want to hold others through this sacred goodbye, we can talk. You can also sign up for my newsletter and get the conscious death checklist, something that I go through with every single one of my clients when we go through the planning stages. You're going to die someday, but maybe first you'll sit alongside someone and you hold and you love them with their paw in your hand as they leave this world. Be good to yourself, okay? I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.